Anthropic just gave Claude the ability to take over your computer. Click your mouse, type on your keyboard, open up your apps. Every tech creator is now losing their minds over this. But here's what nobody's talking about in the data analyst space. And most of you are going to use this in not the most optimal way. And if you work in healthcare and in any regulated industry, using it the wrong way could be a waste of your time, or in worst case, could make a career ending move. In this video, I'm going to break down the difference between AI that simulates work and AI that actually finishes the task, because most analysts don't know the difference yet because they haven't been diving into it. I'll give you the framework that I'm going to be using that decides which 20% of my work I'm going to hand off to AI and which 80% still needs my brain. And if you work in healthcare or any other regulated field, I'll walk you through the compliance line that people aren't really talking about right now, where you can go, where you can't, and what happens if you cross it. My name is Jeff. I became a data analyst over 13 years ago. Today, I'm a business analyst consultant at a top Fortune 500 healthcare company. I build AI agents. I use AI nearly every day, and I've been coding automations inside enterprise healthcare for over a decade. So when I tell you of what I'm experiencing, it's not from theory. This is what I've been living for a while and how I'm adapting. Also, I'm on a mission to help 10,000 people break into healthcare analytics, and I want you to be one of them. So subscribe, because each week I'm going to share practical tips and strategies to help you get there and break into the industry. So let me tell you why this personally matters to me, going back to what Claude is now capable of doing. Almost 2 years ago, I was working on a custom function inside VBA, the Visual Basic application that's inside Microsoft applications. So basically, you can do custom coding for different automations, and you can build full applications within Access, within Microsoft Excel. It took me the old school way of doing things, which was Googling things, reading through Stack Overflow, looking at forums, testing it, breaking it, testing the code again, iterating until I finally got it working. Days of work. Next, when I first learned about ChatGPT, I gave it the same task. I opened ChatGPT, I described what I needed, and it gave me something that was 90% of the way there. I just had to adjust a few things, and I got it working in about an hour. This means non-technical users are going to be able to do what I do. I'm not going to have the technical edge anymore as one of the most technical people on the business side. I need to adapt or I'm going to get replaced eventually. That was my thought when I first started using ChatGPT over 2 years ago. That fear is what started this channel and what made me need to adapt and upskill a lot more aggressively than I had been. Because I work in healthcare, I work in a lot of legacy systems, so as you could see with building stuff and coding stuff in VBA. What happened next changed everything about how I think about AI in my career, but we'll get to that soon. What I want to talk about is what is happening now. So with Claude being able to control your computer, let's go into computer use benchmark progressions. So the human expert baseline at the bottom, the score is about 72.5%. And we're going to talk about what Claude actually is, because the headlines make it seem kind of crazy and it feels like sci-fi, science fiction. So here's what happens. Claude takes a screenshot of your screen and analyzes what it sees. Then it decides on the next step. Click a button, type in a field, open an app, scroll down. Then it takes another screenshot, checks that it worked, and then now it can keep going until the task is done. That's the loop. Screenshot, analyze, act, and then repeat. Here's where it gets more tangible. There's a benchmark called OS World that tests how well AI can actually use a computer, navigate spreadsheets, fill out forms, complete multi-step workflows in real tasks. So this is what we're going to be grading and looking at right now. So in late 2024, this was when Anthropic first launched this. Claude scored under 15%. So the model was Sonnet 3.5. So this was 15%. It scored less than. Now, moving forward, what happened was it got better. And then that score improved to 28%. Then the next model it improved to 42% on Sonnet 3.6. Then it got to 61%, inching its way close to the human expert baseline. And in February 2026, only a month from now, Sonnet 4.6 hit 72.5%. The human expert baseline is 72.4%. So let's sit with that for a second. In 16 months, it went from barely functional to matching human level performance on real desktop tasks. And here is my real and honest take about this. I haven't fully used Claude computer use yet. I haven't. I'm setting it up. I'm going to be doing a lot more testing with my actual workflows and use cases, and I'm going to report back on a future video. But I do build with AI agents every day, use the different models, use OpenClaw, use different frameworks. And I've been automating inside enterprise healthcare for over a decade. So here's the way that I'm approaching it and how I'm starting to think about this. Because here's the trap that most analysts are going to start falling into. Right now, the way that most people use AI is they ask it to summarize something, they ask it for like an overglorified Google search, they draft something, it explains, then they read the output, then decide what to do with it. That's not delegation right now. You're not delegating tasks or work to an AI agent. That's more like enhanced research and development with your task. Like it's a glorified assistant depending on how they use it for the majority of people. So it's just additional reading that functions through a chat. Let's talk about what the biggest difference between AI that hands you a summary and AI that actually finishes the task. One's going to create more work for you, or at least simplify your life a little bit, and the other's going to remove work from your plate. So the first one is, so let's talk about how it's working right now. AI writes a summary, drafts a report, suggests changes, and then you ask it to explain something. All of these are genuinely helpful and will save time on the manual work that you had to take to write the summary or create the report, do the research, suggest changes, or explain something that you didn't know that you would have had to Google and spend a lot more time trying to search to find the better answer. Now, let's look about what we could do when we actually delegate the work to AI. You can have AI pull the report. You can have it format the deliverable based on your own brand guidelines. You can have it send the follow up and double check on various things based on triggers. And then you can also have it check and audit itself to check its data, the data quality, so that you can have an additional check on if the data is usable, but you shouldn't you make it the only check as a warning. So the result is more tasks get done, and then you can focus your attention on more the evaluation of the work itself, or build tools that will automate and create reports based on the output so that you can better evaluate and create guardrails and what you need to trust what AI is creating. And because of this, cloud computer use is a tool that is genuinely crossing the line for everyday users. It's not giving you a document about what to do, it's actually doing the thing for you. Because with the explosion of how popular OpenClaw was, it's because OpenClaw had the access to your computer. It had access to execute lines and be able to do things that we never saw before. And now Claude Code is being able to do some of the same things. And that's one of the reasons why OpenClaw was very popular. And this reminds me of something that happened early in my career. Early on, when I first transitioned from a data analyst to a business analyst, I got to work with a senior data analyst who was the best in the team and probably the best in our department. And I remember sitting at his desk watching, training with him and watching him work. So what happened a lot was a lot of people would just call him a magician with what he built in the applications. He could automate things that I did not know were possible with the tools that we had, with VBA, with SQL, with all of the different things that he was doing, I didn't know were possible. And what he used to call himself, he used to call himself a smart, lazy person. And what he meant by this is he was motivated to automate the boring manual work because he didn't want to do it. And here's what happened to him as a result. He didn't just get more free time, he got placed on better projects. He had more interesting work and he had higher visibility to upper management. He didn't just give himself enough credit either. He was a smart, lazy person, but he still worked hard. And he worked incredibly hard on the work that he found interesting. And that's a pattern that I've seen play out over the last 13 years with inside healthcare analytics is the analysts who figured out how to automate the repetitive, let's say 20% of their work, kept getting pulled into more interesting projects. The ones who wore the manual grind as a badge of honor, they stayed stuck. Instead of trying to learn how to adapt and learn how to be better, they were the ones who didn't get promoted as fast as other people, even though they worked just as hard. They just weren't applying themselves to learn the skills needed to get further and to just make their work easier. And cloud computer use is a new version of that same choice. Smart, lazy people are going to figure out what to delegate, how to best use this to automate things that they don't want to do. Everyone else is going to keep spending Monday mornings doing the same report, the manual grind of what they did last Monday without knowing that this is available for them to improve and so that they don't have to do the boring work. But here is something that might be uncomfortable, an uncomfortable truth that nobody or not many people are talking about in this AI hype that we're starting to see. Not everything should be handled by an AI agent. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people when they're reaching for AI and trying to use AI for everything, when a simpler tool could be more reliable. AI is probabilistic. It's predicting the next best output based on patterns to oversimplify things. That is incredible for creative work, generative tasks, research, synthesis, code generation. But if your data is structured, you need more consistent and accurate outputs every single time. Structured data checks. You can have recurring calculations, rule-based validations. You don't need to use an AI agent as your primary validation mechanism. Build a deterministic tool instead. All the foundations that we built on as analysts, SQL, deterministic Python code, any tools where you're going to get put in the same inputs and get the same outputs and you can rely it on each and every time, that is a better use for validating the most important. And it could be as simple as a script, a formula, something that gives you the same correct answer each and every time, and something that will back up your work if you ever get audited. The smart approach is let AI help you build the tool, then let the tool do the work. But let AI help you build the tool. Don't let AI be the tool, not when accuracy matters or when you need to confirm your accuracy. So you need to have a mix of different AI tools plus deterministic tools to ensure that you have the highest quality, especially in a highly regulated environment like healthcare analytics. I can tell you from personal experience, AI agents break. I build them, they break on me regularly. They have compaction issues on their memory. They forget the whole context. Sometimes they hallucinate. Sub agents from the main agent will hallucinate and pretend like they did the task when they did not do the task. And the biggest issue is when the context gets too large, the memory gets too big, and it's trying to understand everything. The agent basically gets memory loss. It forgets what you told it. It loses track of the task. And if you didn't build the guardrails, even if you did build the guardrails or save your progress, you could lose everything that you were working on or spend a ton of time trying to troubleshoot and get the agent back to where you were. And it's been frustrating, but we've been making a lot more progressions, but that's one of the biggest issues currently. And this is happening to me in Claude and with my agents in long sessions. We'll be deep into a project, the context compacts, we'll have a memory issue, and then it feels like I'm trying to start from scratch to catch it back up. This is why I'm starting to build context documents before, during, and after every major session and put it into markdown files because I know that the agent will eventually forget, or I'm context switching between different platforms and I need to keep the context between the different things that I'm using because I want to test and get output from all of the different models to see which platform is going to give me the best output. People who aren't diving into the nitty-gritty of AI are afraid that AI is going to be replacing them. But the more that I build with these AI agents, the more comfortable I am knowing that I will have a job, because the gaps are real, the weaknesses are real, and the opportunity for analysts is designing the system where AI can work reliably, where you manage them, and then you can manage them over a longer period of time, where the output is validated, where your guardrails will catch the failures before they become big problems. That's not being replaced. That's going to be opportunity that leads you to getting promoted. Now, if you work in any regulated industry, everything that I said comes with an extra layer. So let's look at when to use AI and when to build a tool. So creative and unstructured work, research plus synthesis, and then code generation. Basically, one of the things you want to ask at the high level first is the data structured and is it normalized? If it's not, like say you have a bunch of data within PDFs, Word docs, where you need to scroll and scrape through a bunch of websites, AI is great for handling unstructured data and then doing the creative things that you need, the research, and then synthesizing and finding the patterns and then applying the trends and then being able to create code and other things based off of that data. But if it's the data structured and normalized, build a tool, because now you'll have structured data checks, recurring calculations that you can rely on and you have the logic for. And this one's important, especially when you work in regulated healthcare and your work is checked, it is rule-based validations. And when it's built, the structure is there and it works every single time the same way, it's easier to defend than just having an agent that runs its own validations, but then you don't have a way to assure stakeholders that this is not going to happen again, because you don't know how it happened. Because AI can be a black box, because we can't dive into these foundational models, neural networks, and their transformers, and then explain exactly what is happening. We can explain at a high level, but not to the detail that of why it came to this specific answer with this specific prompt and input. In those cases, you need to build a tool that can create validations based on the AI work that's happening. Now, if you work in healthcare or any other regulated industry, everything that I said comes with an extra layer. Anthropic's own documentation, so if you look down here, says do not give permission access to sensitive apps such as banking, healthcare, or government. Start with simple tasks like research organizing rather than complex multi-step workflows. And you know that people are going to use it for multi-step workflows and within inside those industries, especially as enterprise gets more access to Claude. And Anthropic's literally telling you this, and computer use runs on your actual desktop, not a sandbox, not a virtual machine. This is your real apps and your real files. The general reality inside these large enterprises is the question isn't, can I use this tool? Or for some places, you're not going to be able to use this tool. But for the people who do have access to it, what's the approval process? What are the permissions? How can I make this work? Do I have enough permissions that this is actually helpful? And then you have to see, can this work? So in the safe zone of where you'll be able to have this work, it'll be your personal machine. Your personal machine and your own files. You can always make backups. You can figure out ways to have guardrails to set that up. The other one is, if you work with PHI, is to make sure it's not on. You might make sure it's on de-identified data, unless you're on an enterprise contract where the instance that you're using it's okay to use your data. But the safer route is just to make sure you don't send PHI into these systems, because these systems are training their own internal models, and so it's technically a violation. And if we'll talk more about HIPAA, but we'll talk more about that soon. Just be aware of that. I'd rather err on the side of being safe and not including it, and just taking out those personal member identifiers, so you don't have to worry about it. And then the other safe zone is you have AI build tools. This is going to be tools you build with AI. Is a safer use case. Now, the ask first areas, these are the ones where you're going to need to ask IT. You need to get the permissions. You need to make sure this is okay to run. So for these, this is going to be shared drives, your team's data, because now you're not just affecting your own data, you're affecting your whole team's data. Any internal dashboards that go out to stakeholders, other internal users that you work with that potentially have a broader impact. And then any new AI tool at work, because you have to see if you're able to even use it and if it's compliant for the work that you do. So with any of these, I would just make sure to ask before you act. And here is going to be the danger zone. This is the places where I would avoid if possible, unless you're actively working on projects where you have the permissions. The first one is going to be anything with PHI, personal protected health information. And then you can also just think of this as patient data, like their personal identifiers. Be very careful with where you're entering this information into. So you have to double check because PHI is, again, HIPAA penalties. So this is a massive risk. Double check that you have the compliance for this and what you're doing is okay. The other place is EHR systems, electronic health records. Again, because of PHI, these are going to be clinical systems. And then the other thing, because I know people are going to be doing this, is unapproved tools that work on your network that you happen to get access to. Depending on how good your IT is, they will eventually find you, and you'll get like an email or you'll get put onto a meeting, and then you'll lose more access than you previously had. So these are the places that I would be concerned about because here's what's at stake. It's HIPAA penalties. We can result in the fines up to 50,000 per violation. So individual violations will add up. And then the security rule that I talked about is that it would require organizations to maintain a written inventory of all the AI software that touches patient data. So if you're not sure where something falls, ask your compliance team, ask your AI team first before you start building anything, before you start using and feeding it any type of data. Do it now, do the due diligence so you don't get yourself in hot water later. So here is where it all comes down to. The real skill in 2026 is not using AI. Every creator is going to tell you to use AI. That's not going to be the differentiator anymore. Right now, the differentiator is I'm thinking about in an 80-20 perspective. So this is 20% of your work, and then this is going to be the 80% of your work. The real skill is knowing which 20% of your work is pure mechanical execution that AI can finish, which 80% still needs your judgment, your context, your relationships. So you can think about it in these ways. The recurring report pull, data formatting, follow-up scheduling, that 20%, you can hand it off. You building your guardrails, make sure that you can add in human in the loop, checks and validation before things go off, but you can delegate that to AI once you have the system running. But the stakeholder conversations where you explain why the numbers drop, or where stakeholders are vague and ambiguous and they don't really know what they want, they say they want this. And if you give that to AI will perfectly give them back that, but that's not what they actually want. And so you reading in between the lines of human ambiguity and office politics to actually get to where they want and understanding the nuance of human emotion, that where judgment call on these metrics actually matter and the relationship to the hiring manager who trusts your analysis and your relationship to upper management and how this VP acts on meetings and how to communicate them in a way that will help them understand the decisions that are being made into this process so they feel more comfortable with that. That's going to be the 80%, and that's going to be you because AI can't do that. AI can't read the ambiguity that happens between communication between humans because it doesn't understand that nuance. And someone needs to be accountable, someone needs to be able to navigate these relationships. And that's where the smart, lazy people are going to win in this era. And the ones who automate what they hate and go deep on what matters moving forward will be the ones who thrive. And I know this because I've watched this entire pattern happen in my entire career. My mentor showed me this a long time ago and what it looked like 13 years ago with VBA. And I've been living it ever since. The tools will change. AI is just the new version of what happened back then. but it's just a lot more powerful and it's significantly changing things. Excel and Access became Python and SQL. Python and SQL are now agents and computer use, and then whatever else that is fancy, that is powerful, that we move to later. But the principle hasn't moved. Automate the work you automate the work you hate, go deep on the work that matters, evolve as the market evolves, get placed on better projects. The moment 2 years ago where I thought AI was going to replace me, that 180 happened because I stopped being afraid of the tools and started becoming an expert in where they break, understanding the strength and the weaknesses, where AI is good, where it struggles. The more that I understood that, the more I understood where I fit in this new world, and you can do the same. So if you're trying to break into healthcare analytics and trying to figure out where AI fits inside your own workflow as you try to learn everything on top of it, data analytics, SQL, Python, Power BI, Tableau, that's exactly what I'm building inside the community, is to help people break into healthcare analytics and evolve with AI. So if that interests you, check out the link in the description below. It's application currently. And watch this next video because YouTube thinks that you're going to like it. And I'll see you in the next video. Query responsibly and watch it out.